Alright guys, today's video is the update to the boron experiment I did with oak trees. Now granted, I am currently filming one of my Dunstan chestnuts, and I want to use this as an example before I head up here into the woods to do filming for the oak trees. So we'll do a little ride along today, but this is what I have been noticing with oak trees when I apply boron. Lots of drooping limbs. Look in the back in there, there's broken limbs right there from too much weight. Oak trees up here at the island are experiencing the same thing. So just to show an up close view here of just absolute crazy production. If I had not applied boron, I never would have known a tree like this could make that many nuts with this size of a tree. So we'll go up here now and take a look at the oak trees and see what they look like compared to this Dunstan here. So hang on tight. I'm actually just going to film myself rolling up there instead of editing in another piece to this. Same thing with this next tree behind it. Really drooping, a lot of stress. That's not too bad of a ride. Let me walk behind this camera here so I don't set it off. Try to save a little battery. Alright, so now we're getting into the oak tree update here for the island. Do I have anything different compared to what I just showed you on those chestnut trees? And the answer is, oh yes I do. It is absolutely loaded. Let me get up here and turn this camera off so I don't set it off multiple times. Just give me 1 second here. All right, that camera is now off. All right, so we have major results in the boron experiment. We have big broken limbs right there in a big mat. So much weight on the tree it couldn't hold it and it snapped. This tree has got a new lease on life because this tree here is gone. So none of these lower limbs in the past were ever producing oak nuts, and they did not again this year. Even with boron treatment, I may have to inspect it one more time, but I really didn't see, a lot of oak nuts in these first sets of limbs up here. Now this tree's gone and it can get a full barrage of sunlight. I'd say give it 1 to 2 years and it'll be extremely loaded, which will greatly impact how many nuts this tree here is producing. Now this one, on the other hand, has a lot of good light except for where they meet up right here. And look at how far out the limbs are bowing. They literally look like they're about to break. There are so many acorns in those trees right now. It is ridiculous. And I may try to see if I can get a good zoom shot here. Also, the other oak tree right here, I applied boron to it, and look at how much lean is in the top of that tree. That was a straight growing tree, and now it is leaning so badly because the top of it is absolutely covered in oak nuts. And that sun angle's not the best. Let's see if I can zoom in up here real quick and try to keep most of my focus. So I don't know if you can see that well enough or not, but look at how the limbs are bowed. I'm already at max zoom, so I can't add any more here. One of these shots will probably show it, but it is covered in oak nuts. There's so much weight on that tree right now that it's going to start snapping limbs if the nuts get any fuller, I think, or if a good decent windstorm shows up. So be aware that one of the side effects of boron is it produces so much that it can actually damage trees and cause limb breaks. So let me see if I can zoom in up here to where the broken limb is. Maybe this will help. I'm not quite sure. So there we go. We have a whole bunch of limbs right there. It's all matted up. And there's broken limbs right there as well. This tree here has some small amounts of broken limbs. Mainly it's just bowing extremely badly from the sheer weight of the oak nuts in here. So I'm experiencing the exact same thing in my Dunstan chestnut trees. I've experienced the exact same thing in my fruit trees and my oak trees. Guys, for those of you that have small property and you're looking for any advantage that you can come up with, how about putting some boron out around your oaks, and the acorn, if I can even speak right, the acorn mass will be so heavy if it is allowed to develop and frost doesn't kill it, that you're going to outlast your neighbors. This is a fantastic thing that I have been doing for quite a while now. It's just more recently I have learned to up the sow rates. It's taken years of experimenting, trying different levels, and then I finally found the sweet spot, which is about a 3 pound per acre sow rate as far as boron broadcasting. These big trees right here, I tried my best to stay out of their root zone, but I think I may have affected my major oak trees as well, which as far as numbers go, I was trying to keep it out because I did fertilize over into here, and I think it did tap into the roots. I fertilized this tree partially with boron. I tried to stay out of this area, and I think the roots of these big trees go at least to where this tree is. But when I apply it next time, I'm not going to be concerned about the big trees. I actually want them to produce more nuts than what they are now. But I did start seeing limbs up in there that are drooping down. I've never really seen a lot of stress on these big trees, but they are starting to sag just a little bit. And now we'll go over here to these smaller oaks. And usually it's the smaller oaks that you have trouble getting good numbers out of them. I did not really broadcast too much right here at this tree. It has never produced, and it's a pretty young tree, but it has never produced anything. And this year I saw 1 or 2 up here in the very top somewhere, and I'm just not seeing them. They might have come off, but there was like 1 or 2 little nuts way up there in the very top, which is a sign that the tree's getting ready to open up its production. Now this red oak right here has also been in this category, never really producing anything, and it's pretty much done the same thing this year. But where I applied the boron treatment, the growth rate of this tree has more than doubled. Now this white oak over here is a different story. This one has quite a few nuts in the top. And it did produce in the past, and now it's producing heavily again this year, although it's not on the scale of some of these more matured oak trees. But that will change as the tree continues to get older. But I have definitely affected the boron level here. And here's another biggie. I know that at least one of you has told me that your persimmon trees have just flat out exploded in production when you applied it, which congratulations to you. This one is not that big of a persimmon. It's just, you know, it's just a really tall and lanky growing tree, but there is so much weight in persimmons right now. It is insane. So let me try to zoom in again, and you can probably see them this time. All kinds of persimmons hanging out of that tree right there. So extremely loaded with persimmons. This tree here didn't produce last year. I didn't put any boron out on it, and this year I put boron, and we are covered in persimmons. So it doesn't matter what species you really apply this to, you're going to get monster gains on really any plant that you set boron out on, as long as you don't set out so much that you kill it. You have to, I want to implore extreme caution. Never overdo boron. And you'll hear me mention that multiple times in multiple videos. So this tree here has never produced, and this year it did the same thing. However, this is in the same category as these other oaks. The growth rate is twice as much or more, because boron really helps to stimulate growth with production in trees. So I like the fact that the growth rate has sped up on these trees, and that will translate into a very fast rise in acorns when this tree really starts going. And it is shaded, by the way, very shaded compared to a lot of other trees, and it's just not going to produce. The only thing it's really missing is sunlight. And if I can cut this big hickory limb off right here, I think that would open up a huge opportunity for that tree. Oh, by the way too, this skinny, taller oak is also covered in oak nuts in the very top. The further down the tree you go, the less there is. And a lot of that is young limbs and sunlight issues with those trees. Now here, these two here have never produced, but yet again, we have fantastic growth rate increases on these oak trees. More than a foot of growth has come out of there. Last year that was maybe 6 or 8 inches. A lot of 1 foot or more growth all the way up and down the tree. And you can't see it from the top, or the top of the tree from here, but it's grown like 2.5, 3 feet. I mean, it's just up there. Big, long, skinny top. This white oak here beside it has not produced yet, and it was treated with boron, but the growth rates have increased. So I am at least helping these trees. If they're not going to produce nuts, I'd rather them get some size on them quicker, and that way when it does happen, it'll be, here's a whole bunch of nuts for you, just out of nowhere. Same thing will happen with beech trees. For anybody that has beech trees, you're going to see a rapid rise in those little small nuts. These trees will be completely covered in them. So then we're going to circle back to this one, and I'm going to show you the one big tree that I did treat with it. I'm saving it for last. Now you can see the lean that tree is just got so much weight on one side, and I can see the nuts from here with just from my naked eye, but this camera's having a hard time, I think, of really showing what's really there. Mainly just limited on my zoom abilities right now. But they are absolutely coated in acorns. So I love that type of result. If you're able to triple or quadruple your oak crop, which I think that is basically what I am seeing, is at least triple, maybe more than my normal oak nut production. And I was able to treat all my oak trees on my property. It's almost like growing the size of your property without expanding, if you catch what I'm trying to say. If you're producing triple the amount of oak nuts that you normally do, or even quadruple the normal of oak nuts that you normally produce, imagine how much more food would be in this tract of land compared to not giving it boron. So let's go over here to the bigger one, and I'll try to swing a little high so I don't set that camera off. And we're going to go over here and check this tree out. So this tree has issues because it's covered a lot by this big hickory right here. So it's shading out 50%, if not more, of one side of the tree, and it's basically going to have an odd shaped canopy because of that. Now, we have a major difference if I can get camera shot up in here, so give me 1 second. All right, so as I'm looking up between these two trees, in years past, they've been intertwined and pushing literally against each other. Well, looky here, see, we have a broken limb. This tree is also now starting to massively produce, and that is with a boron treatment, but I want to say that I think it's a little trickier to apply boron in a setting like this. That leaf litter is like a repelled barrier that prevents boron from really seeping down into the soil. I think if you burn your place off before the trees leaf out, and set your prescribed fire, come back in and throw boron out, you'll get a much better result. So I think the leaves kind of block it, although at the same time I could say if it rained enough it could seep through the leaves. But I think results are just better without the leaves, based on what I've seen before. So now, if I can get around to the front of this tree, we have that whole top of that tree is now leaning out. That was not doing that last year. I mean, it is really bowing some limbs up there. This is the most nuts this tree has ever produced, and it's not even close. There's probably more than 30 times the nuts that I've seen out of this tree. It's always had a hard time producing because all these other competing trees in here were sucking out sunlight. 80% of the limbs in that tree was not getting enough light to really encourage nut production. So I came in, I cut down all these locust trees right here, and I cut down a few other sassafrasses in here just to open up a little light and space. And I created a big void, which is much bigger looking than from this point of view. And the oak tree has grown faster. It is also really ramping up nut production. So limbs that are further down the tree are now joining the party as far as producing nuts. So this tree, based on the nut crop I see, is going to pay huge dividends for me, especially if I'm just right over there and one of my bucks that I'm after shows up, and here he is scarfing down oak nuts. I've got a clean line to shoot, at least on this side I do, but I don't shoot any deer once they get down below this point for safety concerns. But anywhere around this tree right here, I can fire. So I'm setting the stage for what is hopefully going to be a successful season. I could do all this work and not kill a single deer, and that's going to happen from time to time, especially when you have lower deer densities. For you guys that have high deer densities, you're practically going to have target deer every year, and mine will vary. Sometimes it's 1 or 2 good bucks, and sometimes it's more like 6 to 8 good bucks. It varies from year to year. But because I'm really trying to ramp up production on my property, I think that this will pay huge dividends on my chances of at least getting an opportunity to maybe shoot one. And I hope this experiment helps you. I will continue to add boron, and I'll do it every year, and you're going to find some years it works great and other years it doesn't. And that's because frost can still kill all your flowers. So even if I put boron out, and I've done that part right, but weather has to cooperate along with it. And this time it's cooperated. That tree there just looks like any time now it's going to snap limbs. They're really, really sagging down. All right, guys, hope you find this video informative and helpful, and that it really helps make your property a solid oak nut producer. Have a good one.